Helmsman Packer.
Captain?
Vanilla latte. Skim milk.
At once.
I've not been especially into the Netflix seasons of Black Mirror. It's all been fine for the most part, don't get me wrong, but none of the Netflix efforts have really been on par with stories such as White Christmas, or the National Anthem, or Be Right Back, or The Entire History of You. The first two seasons in the Christmas special, originally broadcast on Channel 4, are somewhat of a golden age for me. But one outlier that I keep coming back to, that I enjoy just as much if not more than any of those episodes, is USS Callister. You could talk to me about pretty much anything from this episode, and we'd be here for the rest of the video listening to me gush incomprehensibly about how awesome it is, from the performances, to the production design, to the watertight script. But what I think is so impressive about USS Callister, and why it stayed with me, is because it flies in the face of tonal inconsistency. You see talk of tonal inconsistency all over film and TV criticism on the internet, how comedy was inserted into an otherwise serious movie about space wizards and killed the entire thing, or how having a moment of levity undercuts the drama of the previous scene, or how an entire film franchise is better than another film franchise because it takes itself seriously and doesn't have any pesky jokes. Most of these criticisms boil down to this joke undercuts the tension, or this tension makes the jokes feel weird. In short, everyone hates laughs and fun. But being serious, this idea of tonal inconsistency, it's a perspective I find nonsensical for the most part. Movies can be many things. They can make you think about something prevalent in the real world, they can make you cry, they can make you laugh. It's often when I experience a contrasting emotional response in a screening that it stays with me for longer. Laughing my head off at the blockbuster absurdity of Furious 7, seeing Vinny getting married in a tank top, Kurt Russell dual-wielding pistols with night vision shades on, hearing The Rock proclaim that
Daddy's gotta go to work.
only to ugly cry watching Paul Walker get a touching and emotionally resonant goodbye. It's that contrast that makes it memorable, that makes it feel like a full experience. More recently, I saw Jordan Peele's Us come under fire for that same kind of criticism. It was tonally inconsistent. It sold itself as a horror movie, but then had characters making jokes to each other in certain tense situations. For me, it was the blend between horror and comedy that made Us such a uniquely enjoyable experience. And I think the wording here is key. It isn't inconsistent, it's a blend of tone. It's the way in which the piece that you're watching can exude the confidence to have a character make light of something horrible in the same way you might do if you feel tense or awkward.
Oh, thank God for that.
Or the way that oftentimes something horrible can also be kind of amusing in another light. And that's not me saying on the flip side that Schindler's List would be a better movie if it had jokes. Sometimes the material in question warrants a particular tone throughout, of course it does. What I'm saying is that blending tones of any kind isn't something that should be written off as tonally inconsistent from the off. Because when a story does pull it off, we oftentimes get something truly special. Which brings me back to USS Callister. The most readily apparent way that USS Callister gets away with such blatant levity and humour is through the fake show within the show, Space Fleet. The obvious 60s Star Trek pastiche lampoons all the pop culture elements from that show that has been picked to death. Robert Daly's intonations are the same as one William Shatner.
I never met the god before.
And you haven't yet. Readings, Doctor.
We'll let him go. For now.
The short, campy, colour-coded figure-hugging uniforms, the quarries and deserts doubling up for alien worlds, the over-the-top villains.
Jesus.
All of these elements enhance the psychological terror and body horror present in the story. It provides a stark contrast to the real world that exists outside of Daly's computer, a world where he's the butt of the joke, where no one respects him in the workplace, where he's mostly creepy, sometimes sympathetic.
I'm James Walton, I run the company. Well, we run the company, kind of. Bob here is the hardware and I am the shiny front end.
We understand why our antagonist is so desperate to escape back into Fantasyland inside his computer, where he's showered with compliments and respect born out of fear. The faux Shatnering that Daly puts on might lull the crew and the audience into thinking he's all bark and no bite, until he does something incredibly nasty, like transforming Shania into a hideous beast to live out an eternity as an animal. Suddenly those alien worlds don't seem as campy when we know every living thing on them is a human being inside.
How you doing, Jillian? Well, yeah.
Her name's Gillian. She was in marketing.
Valdak's campy over-the-top nature is all just a vain attempt to impress his lord and master enough that he'll spare the pain of his very existence.
And I've been a good adversary for you, have I not?
Killing in cold blood is against Space Fleet code.
The look on his face is heartbreaking. We know how much he's had to humiliate himself and pretend to be Daly's backyard action figure, only to know that it's all going to happen again. There's no denying that USS Callister is at its heart a dark story. It's about a man believing he has the right to copy co-workers who, brackets, treat him unfairly, into a digital landscape where he can literally play God. These digital copies exist in a waking existential nightmare, unable to escape Daly's control, unable to take joy from simple pleasures, unable to even kill themselves to end the torture. The implication that they will spend an eternity in the recreation of Daly's favourite childhood show is more than enough to turn the viewer's stomach. It certainly stays with me every time I watch it, but it also makes for ample opportunity for comedy. Our lead character,
Lieutenant Cole.
boards the digital USS Callister for the first time during the story. She's our lead into discovering how frightening the crew's day-to-day life has become. But on the flip side, the crew, made up of people Daly has been scorned or perceived to have been scorned by, have been in the simulation for much longer. They've grown to accept their fate in spite of how horrible it is, and that acceptance has led to complacency and sarcasm.
Grinding our mounds together out of sheer boredom. No sensation at all.
Can't even ship.
There's several funny instances where the crew point out the limits of their lives with cutting nonchalance.
Can't even have the basic fucking pleasure of pushing out a shit.
I miss taking shit.
It being funny only further serves the terror.
Lieutenant Cole.
Shut it! Nanette, she still has the glimmer of hope that people like Walton and Shania no longer hold. Because of this, her panicked state when she realises her face has disappeared brings a new dimension to every character. We know that behind all the sarcasm, every single one of them has gone through the same stages of terror to arrive at the complacent attitude they hold in the now. That in of itself, the idea that you could face God, a malicious God, figure out there's nothing you can do, and then just decide, I suppose I better get on with it. The idea is only pulled off because of how USS Callister blends comedy and horror. Their subservience also produces some of the funniest lines, particularly whenever anyone is trying to compliment Daly.
It's great decision making, Captain.
And this one never fails to get a laugh out of me.
Great plan, Captain.
Unparalleled tactics, Captain.
But it's more than just quick laughs. The whole point of Nanette's story is that she is the one unwilling to let go of hope. Hope that they can find a way out, and it is that hope that provides the spark to breaking the crew's subservience. So after we've laughed at their brown-nosing, how satisfying is it to see them decide to stand with Nanette and stand up to Daly?
We are gonna get that fucking lollipop.
Walton, easily the most complacent member of the crew, is the one that treated Daly the worst in the real world. He's also the character with the biggest ghost in the story. We tragically find out that Daly copied Walton's son into the simulation, only to make him watch as he threw him out an airlock.
They freeze. And crack like a porcelain doll.
Again, the comedy accentuates the terror. We know once the story has come full circle why Digital Walton is so sarcastic. It's to hide his pain. So when he finally gives an apology of sorts to Daly, only to then tell him,
But you threw my son out of an airlock, so fuck you to death.
we feel it 10 times more. I also think the tone of this story is why it's one of the few Black Mirror episodes to pull off a happy ending.
Oh, okay. Should I keep scrolling?
Any of the last 9 would do.
The crew have suffered so much that when we finally get to see them succeeding, we're thankful for all the gags. It's like a breath of fresh air, finally. Once the crew successfully leave Daly to sit in his mod and become a vegetable in the real world, they're rewarded with the freedom to explore infinity to their heart's content. And here we get to see why humour is welcome in a dark story for the purposes of making it feel true to life. Of course, the first gamer they meet online is an angry dude hell-bent on hurling as many insults towards them as possible.
So why did you respond? Okay, just get the hell out of my quadrant or I'll blast you to shit. You got 10 seconds.
God, that voice sounds familiar. Is that Hank from Better Call Saul? The USS Callister makes you want to both laugh and be uncomfortable from its very first scene to its last, and it makes no apologies for doing so. It's an excellent example that no matter how grim a story might be, depending on the nature of that story, there might be a good opportunity to have some fun too.
You're supposed to say something like engage or increase thrust.
Just fucking go.
So, we didn't think we'd be doing this, but someone has actually donated $100, which is incredible.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Chike.
honestly, that's awesome. You are, as we said in our Patreon video, literally keeping the lights on. So, no, but seriously, thank you very much. And, yeah,
we're just sort of in shock, aren't we?